Donna, I'll go ahead and start with you and say in day 4 of deliberations, we don't have a verdict yet. Does that give you any insight to what is going on with this jury?
Well, I think if this jury thought that neither social media company was liable in any way, we would probably be done already. So I think now the deliberation is one of them liable? Is one of them not? Are they both liable? And if so, to what degree? And so I think that given the fact that we are on day 4, and if you look at the instructions that the jury gets, and if you look at the forms that the jury gets to fill out, there's a bunch of questions that they have to answer in order to get to the point of determining what the actual monetary number will be. So it seems to me that given that we're on day 4, the communication is probably about damages more than it is about whether or not they're liable.
So Kurt, I guess part of that might come down to things that the social media companies have said in the trial about steps they've taken to try to help protect young people and to empower parents to protect their kids. You're the guy who always gives us tips on how to do that kind of stuff. How did you assess the case that the social media companies made in the trial on that point?
Hey, Brian. Hey, Jackie. It's interesting, and I'm even hearing what Donna's saying. I'm kind of smelling the same future she's smelling with this trial. I'm holding those verdict forms right here. They do have to answer that question if indeed they did find that YouTube or Google, the owner, or Meta, the owner of Instagram, including Mark Zuckerberg, would be responsible. It essentially asks them, were they negligent in the design or operation of their platform? If so, then they get on to those. How were they? How substantial was it? And I would imagine that that is really consuming the jury. If they're down this road, I think the jury's going to be thinking about, all right, you've got a 20-year-old plaintiff here who claims that at age 6 she started to become addicted to these platforms. So the question is, despite the platforms, what came out also in court is the fact that she had mental anguish outside of these social platforms that also could account for her harm in her life. So now the jury, if it indeed is going in this direction, and Donna might agree, is saying, wow, okay, how much goes to what just naturally happened in life? And then how much of it was amplified and responsible and held responsible for these platforms? And did the platforms do enough to warn kids like her or parents to stop this kind of harm from happening if indeed they're going down this road? Now, there is a chance. There's a chance because there are thousands of documents that were admitted into evidence that were not heard in court, that this jury has to comb through, really, if they want to have a thorough look at all of the evidence. That also could be consuming this. And you never know, if you're not getting consensus on that jury, is it that they're caught on technicalities found in those documents and it's going on for days? I don't know. I sense, though, that you're gonna potentially get a verdict out of here that could send this whole industry into a whole new direction where big tech is now held responsible for what they're doing, not in the content, but how they design these algorithms that you and I with common sense know are addictive. We know we get sucked into them. We know they're not healthy. So the jury's really taxed with, technically, is that true? Legally, is that true? And then you've got the defendants already having filed many, many motions that would set them up for appeal immediately following this. Nonetheless, it's a big day.
They lay the groundwork for that. But I want to key in on something that you said with you, Donna, that Kurt said with respect to how the companies may or may not change their operations as a result of this. Many people are saying even if there is some liability and some guilt with respect to this verdict and damages, it's not legislation. But to me, it sets a precedent that still would force, in some ways, these companies to modify their protections or how they're operating to protect young people a little bit more than they have been, because you can't keep having cases like this with precedent out there and paying out huge sums if that ends up being what happens here.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, and I am not a fan of regulation. However, when we're dealing with young people, we're dealing with children, we see it in every industry. We see regulation in the tobacco industry, we see it in the gaming industry, we see it in the alcohol industry, we see what age we let people drive. So I definitely think that given the fact that if this jury, and Kurt's right, it's very possible they're looking over thousands of documents and they haven't even got to the question of liability. But my instinct 4 days in is telling me that they probably have. But let's say that they come to this point, then I do think that you are going to see these companies say, look, we have to be much more serious in the way we target young people. We have to be much more deliberate in the safety nets that we put in place here, because I think we all see, and I think what's different about this jury than most juries in any other type of case, every single person on that jury has a phone in their hand. Every person is affected by this circumstance. And so, these jurors just have much more knowledge on the topic, I think, than most Americans do in most jury trials.
Very good point. Donna Rotuno, Kurt Knutsson, thanks for your expertise tonight.
Thank you.